In the vicinity of a quaint Serbian town known as Bosanska Gradiška, nestled in the village of Gasnica, a peasant family witnessed the birth of an ordinary girl in the year 1925. This girl was to be known as Lepa Svetozara Radić. As with all children of her time, Lepa spent her childhood years growing up, learning, and attending the local Gradiška school. It seemed likely that as time would pass, she might have pursued a career as a rural teacher or a nurse, or perhaps she would have ventured to the vibrant city of Belgrade to seek higher education at a university. Alas, fate had other plans, for in the year 1940, the war marched into the tranquil lives of those dwelling in the Balkan Peninsula. The invading German and Italian forces plunged Yugoslavia into chaos, aided by the Croatian separatist forces led by Ante Pavelić. This man had established a puppet Croatian state, a state that served not the Croatian people but the agendas of foreign powers. When the war broke out, Lepa was a mere 15 years old, a tender age for anyone to face the upheavals of war. Yet as the conflict intensified, it demanded the involvement of all, and thus all the male members of her family, including her father, uncles, and cousins, joined the ranks of the partisan resistance. In the cold month of December in 1941, a dark cloud descended upon Lepa and her family. They were apprehended by the Croatian Ustaše, a group that pledged allegiance to the Nazi cause. Lepa, along with her mother, grandmother, and other kin, were thrust into the grim confines of a Croatian prison, where they languished for 20 harrowing days. Yet on this occasion, fortune smiled faintly upon them, and they were released. This brush with captivity did not dampen Lepa's spirit. Instead, along with her sister Dara, she joined the partisan movement, becoming part of the WWII company within the 2nd Krajina partisan detachment. Given their youth, they were assigned to serve in a partisan hospital. Here, Lepa, the youngest among the medics, embraced her role with a sense of duty and care that won the hearts of the wounded soldiers who affectionately came to see her as a daughter or a younger sister. Parallel to her service in the hospital, Lepa also completed short-term party courses and was accepted into the Yugoslav Communist Party, making her the youngest communist in her unit. Her natural ability to communicate and connect with others caught the attention of the partisan leadership, and she was given the responsibility to conduct political agitation among the youth and the local populace. However, in the summer of 1942, a German occupation operation targeted the partisans in the Kozara region, forcing a desperate breakout from enemy encirclement. It was during this time that Lepa Radić demonstrated her valor by playing an instrumental role in evacuating the local population who were under the shadow of fascist oppression. She facilitated the retreat of civilians, the transfer of livestock, and ensured that food supplies did not fall into enemy hands. Tragically, it was in these battles that her father and her younger brother Milan met their demise. The latter's fate was later discovered to be at the hands of the Ustaše in the notorious Jasenovac concentration camp in the year 1945. The weight of these events forced Lepa to mature beyond her years. The trials she faced could have broken a lesser spirit, yet they only served to temper her resolve to see the defeat of the fascist invaders. Despite the hardening effect of war, Lepa retained her innate kindness and generosity, ready at a moment's notice to extend a helping hand. A wrinkle on her forehead was the only subtle sign that she was no longer the naive girl who had once stepped into the partisan ranks. After a successful initial evacuation, Lepa returned to lead a second group of about 150 souls, mainly comprised of women, the elderly, and children, away from the clutches of the enemy. Their path from Bosanka Kupa towards Mount Zek, however, was thwarted by the 369th Battalion of the German Infantry Division, which consisted of Croatian Ustaše fighters. As the enemies tightened their grip around the group, Lepa, the only one armed, commanded the rest to escape into the forest, while she stood her ground to cover their retreat. She fought valiantly until she had expended her last bullet and was only captured when she could no longer defend herself. The Ustaše, known for their brutality, subjected Lepa to severe beatings. Some refugees managed to escape, but others were not as fortunate and were captured alongside Lepa. They were all sent to the town of Bosanska Kupa, where they were indiscriminately thrown into prison. During her interrogation, Lepa demonstrated unwavering fortitude, imploring the SS officers and Croatian interrogators to release the innocent villagers, taking all the blame upon herself as the sole partisan. Staring into the face of death and enduring torture, Lepa's thoughts were not of herself but of others. The fascists tempted her with her life and rewards in exchange for information on the partisan whereabouts and her comrades' identities. Yet Lepa, with defiant pride, scoffed at her captors, never betraying the cause for which she stood. Even as she was subjected to nocturnal chill and relentless beatings, her resolve remained unshaken, her spirit unbroken, a testament to a will far greater than that of many seasoned men. The beginning of February saw Lepa Radić standing before a fascist tribunal that sentenced her to death. Amongst those in German uniform were local Volksdeutsche, ethnic Germans born in Yugoslavia, who could converse fluently in Serbian. A few of these individuals, moved by Lepa's bravery and resilience, approached her with pleas to betray her comrades, emphasizing her youth and questioning the wisdom of sacrificing her life for others. Lepa's response was as courageous as it was resolute. She declared she would never betray her people, men, women, or children, and confidently proclaimed that her comrades would eventually reveal themselves as they vanquished the evildoers. On the fateful day of February 11, 1943, Lepa was transported in an open truck to the site of her execution, which was to be held near the Bosanska Kupa railway station, close to a tunnel where an infamous acacia tree stood, transformed by the Nazis into a gallows of sorrow. Barefoot and clad in basic attire, her hands bound by telephone cable, Lepa stepped onto the execution block with composure. As the executioner prepared the noose, she addressed the gathered masses, urging them to fight for their freedom and not to capitulate to the tyrants. With her final words, she proclaimed that her death would be avenged. In the moment that followed, the executioner removed the support from beneath her, and Lepa Radić was hanged. The silent crowd bore witness to the occupiers' cruelty, their silence a quiet revolt against the fascist usurpers. The Nazis, in a despicable attempt to intimidate and instruct a lesson to the populace, initially forbade the removal of Lepa's body from the gallows. However, they soon realized that the memory of Lepa dead was as potent as her living spirit. The locals visited the execution site daily, paying their silent tributes. Eventually, the Ustas relented and removed her body from the tree, but her final resting place was obscured by the savagery of the fascists, likely burned and buried alongside other fallen partisans and innocent victims of occupation. After the liberation, the legacy of Lepa Radić was honored posthumously with the title of National Hero of Yugoslavia, a befitting tribute to a soul that stood unyielding against tyranny, a beacon of courage and sacrifice in the darkest of times.